We're going to start this next segment with a question from the audience. Don't be nervous. It's a good one.
Okay. Recently, I had an incident where a client was assaulting their parent. I was in a home. Client was assaulting their parent, and the parent had asked me not to support, had asked me not to physically intervene, and also had asked me to leave.
You were actually witnessed?
Yes.
Okay.
I was witnessing assaults over and over again, and I really didn't know what to do because they had said, please leave, and I was trying to prolong it as long as I could because it wasn't a safe situation, but I'm also in their home, and it's their right to ask me to leave.
Do you know the intent of that? Why they wanted you to leave? Was it to keep you from getting hurt?
I don't think so. I think maybe the thought was I was contributing to the aggression, possibly. I'm not really sure.
Do you have any sense of that yourself?
I think maybe Kyle can add to this. Was I adding to the aggression? I was following the plan that was put into place.
Cop out. Pass the mic down. She wants to say something.
No, I don't think Lauren was contributing to the aggression. This is a high school or 14-year-old student, 6 foot tall, and I was not there, but started aggressing. We're on the same case. And
so both of you were there?
No, I was not there, but have experienced the behavior before, but not directed at mom at that level of intensity that Lauren did that day.
So you saw it before. Did they ask you to leave?
I have not seen it towards mom. I've seen it towards me and was able to implement like behavior type plan, but not at the same intensity that Lauren saw it.
What is it about the plan that you think might cause an escalation that you were following?
I think that with regards to the plan, we are trying to implement something that maybe the family is not also implementing, and so there's somewhat of a conflict there. So we're placing demands where
they don't.
They don't, and maybe aren't comfortable with the demands that we're placing.
So you were putting some demands on the kid according to the plan.
Yes.
That might have been a contributing factor in his escalation. Their perception was, yep, that's it. Now, was the plan approved by them some time back?
Yes?
Yes, we were there for, sorry, I don't want to do the mic.
Yeah, give it back.
Maybe if I shout loud enough the mic will hear. Yes, so they had been receiving one-on-one ABA services, and so we were implementing those plans. The big change is that we're new therapists to the team. And so the family is not all the way acclimated to us.
But what I'm getting at is, was there a meeting where you're sitting across from the parents and you're saying, okay, here's one thing we want to do. When you put demands on him, he tries to get out of them. So we're not going to let him get out of the demand situation, and that may cause some escalation, but don't worry, he'll get over it. Did that conversation happen?
So we did have conversations about the behaviors, but it wasn't, I guess, in that exact context. It was like there was a history of the behaviors the family was aware of. However, they've recently escalated. So we had a meeting that night as a result of that day, essentially.
And earlier that morning, they did receive the plan that was just had a few minor additions to it. So they actually were aware of the plan. It was sent to them.
So when they asked you to leave, they were essentially saying, we really didn't realize this plan was going to cause this much trouble. And we sort of wish we hadn't approved it now that we see how this plays out, because we hate to see him be aggressive.
I think so.
Yeah.
No, they didn't say that, but
Sure.
they said, please leave.
Yeah. Well, you know, as a behavior analyst, you have to read between the lines a lot, and you have to read the body language a lot. So you did leave. And is the question, did you do the right thing?
I did leave. I tried to prolong it as long as possible. As the assaults were continuing, I didn't leave mid-assault. I waited as long as I could. I tried to at least to move in closer, to at least have both of them know that I'm here to support if necessary, and tried to offer support to the parent before I left. But she had asked me to leave, and I said I kept.
Was it polite or screaming or?
It wasn't polite, but it wasn't screaming.
So more like, go ahead and just do that for me.
That sounded polite.
This was terrible. Please leave.
About that amplitude?
A little more than that. Like they weren't yelling, but it was firm.
Yeah.
This is
Please
not how I wanted to go.
Sure.
Please leave my home.
I learned to ask that question by listening to Car Talk. Anybody here listen to Car Talk on Saturday morning? And somebody calls in and says, you know, my engine makes a funny noise, and they go, well, what's it sound like? And then the person does it, and it's hilarious. And then they go, do it again. I won't ask you to do it again, but I got the picture. You did the right thing. And I think if the problem is that when you put demands on, you need it back?
She really wants to give it up.
Yeah. When you have a reaction to demands like that, it tells me that it's a JND too big. You know about JND? Experimental psychology? Just noticeable difference. A just noticeable difference is a difference in some stimulus dimension, auditory, visual, configuration, color, any, just enough that you can go, hey, I saw that, as opposed to, didn't see it. And so what you did, I'm not saying in a deliberate sense, but what happened is, we'll do the Nixon approach. Just, well, this thing's happened. What happened is there was too big a jump from wherever he was before to whatever this demand was. It was too big. And now the next step is, okay, well, we need to scale back a piece. As opposed to, we're going to go right back in there with that, and we are not going to let him get away with this, and we are going to show him who's the behavior analyst. It's very easy to get sort of caught up in that. Like, you know, I'm the smart person here. I ought to be able to show people what I'm doing. But you don't want to make it into a contest. So then you have to say, what was the last kind of demand that you could put on him and he would comply with? You remember what that was? With no fighting?
There was an addition. Do you want me to take the mic?
Oh, hey, we need the mic.
Without going into too many specifics, there's an additional information I should have given you. The particular client has a set routine, and that's out of the realm of ABA. This is something they do with the family. That routine was interrupted, and that was part of what was going on as I had addressed it, and then I wasn't addressing it anymore. And then it kind of went from there. So I hear what you're saying about not going in there and I'm the boss and all this, you know. However, in this particular case, it was, I didn't have control over the extraneous factors that were
Sure.
the
Got
routine
it.
had been interrupted.
Got it. So if that extraneous thing hadn't happened, the demand that you were putting would be very reasonable, and he would, under normal circumstances, comply.
Yes.
Is that correct?
For the most part, yeah.
All right. So you still did the right thing. So you're batting 2 for 2. Hold on. So you still did the right thing. Now that you've had this experience, what you want to know the next time you come in, I assume that you're still welcome back there. The next time
I thought
you,
I wouldn't be, but yes, I am.
Yeah. The next time you go in, you want to somehow, directly or subtly or whatever, find out if that extraneous thing has happened again, and if not, proceed with your plan. But if whatever that was, you know, we had to make him take his meds, he didn't want to take his meds, and then you start your thing, and that preceded it. That was Skinner calls those precurrent behaviors. If that preceded it, and that's what makes it not work, your responsibility is just to be aware of that and see if, you know, if it's happening, you may want to just back off till the next time you come out there, because there's no sense just plowing into this and by God, I'm going to show them, because you'll get injured, it'll look ugly, and you really won't win ever.
Right. And I don't want to look ugly.
Boy, I tell you, a behavior analyst that's been defeated, that looks really ugly, you know, because I mean, it takes you forever to get to your car, you know, you're just walking so slow.
Afterwards, I sat in my car for about 20 minutes once I was home.
And then when people see you a little bit later, don't break it now.
I know, right? Are you guys hot?
No, it's nice.
People see you a little bit later and they go, "How you doing?" "Fine." When you start saying, "Oh, I just said fine," then you know you're in trouble. So then you got to fix it. But everything you did was right, and the blinds are working, so life is good.
Great.
Okay, ready?
Yeah.
Oh, actually, we're going to have some.
Yeah, I'll lower these.
Okay.
Why is everybody watching?
Wrong one.
Actually, put it back up. What?
Yeah, getting close.
That better?
That's better. Ah, perfect. That's it. You did it. Okay. So it took a long time to get here. Yes, let's hear it. Kobe. If this data Finch thing doesn't work out, we've got a job for you.
Closing blinds.
Yeah.
A lot of those jobs around.
Yeah, right. Tall buildings,
Yeah.
lots of windows. Okay. Now, so I would argue that this case, this 2-for-1 case, is an example of a complex case, and I'll try to make my case here for that's the case. So, question number 1: when you receive, once you've analyzed the case and said, "Ooh, this is a complex one," and then you're going to start to analyze it. Step 1 is the incident covered by the guidelines? Ignore this number 3 business up there. Is it covered by the guidelines? If so, you look it up in the code and you cite the code number so that you have that as your sort of anchor as you work through the case. And of course, it could be more than one. Then you ask the second question, because you're about to embark on an adventure here, and you don't know exactly what the outcome is, but you should be prepared to think in terms of what the risk is. And the risk could be varied. There's some risk to the client that you have to think about, risk to other people, and to yourselves. So the risk to the client, for example, is that the owner could get ticked off about this and terminate the client. So, and before, at least they were getting one-on-two services. They were supposed to get one-on-one, but they're getting one-on-two, but they were getting some services. So that's some risk. There's risk to others, which is there was a second child there. Something might happen to that person. Other behavior analysts who are working there may have some side effects back on them because you're friends with them, and so on. So the risk could range from bodily harm, emotional distress, some kind of economic damage. There could be some risk, like if you get fired, that would be an example of economic damage. Could be, in this particular example, probably not bodily harm, but there may be some emotional stress associated with your intervening with the owner in this case. Then you look at what I call the players. So the BCBA, in this case, I probably should have just written that as the behavior analyst. In this case, it's a BCABA, that person. The owner that she was talking to was, in fact, a BCBA. So that's one person. Another one is the client. In this case, I would talk about that in terms of the family, because they're going to be involved in how they take all this, whether they respond positive, negative, is going to be a factor. If there's a supervisor around, you have to take that into account. Is this a strong person that's going to back you up or not? Is there an agency head that always leans one way or the other? They always supports the families or always support the behavior analyst? And is there any other organization? So in this case, we've got at least one other organization, which is insurance companies. They don't take kindly to being billed for one-on-one when, in point of fact, it's not one-on-one. So that all has to be taken into account. And with each of those, you have to look at what their strengths are. So the considerations for the players: what are their strengths, what are their weaknesses, what clout do they have, what connections do they have, what biases do they have going in, do they have any history with regard to any of these issues. So this is getting to be a fairly complex formula, as you can see, and the reason for laying it out this way is to make sure that you've really kind of thought through what might happen. In the case I gave you just a few minutes ago before the break, where I said I was contacted by this student, and she was having a bad experience with a facility down in Florida, and decided to report them. She didn't go through the 7 steps, and she didn't get to step 3 about the players. If she did, she would have discovered that the BCBA had a brother who was an attorney, and that certainly the BCBA would probably tell his brother, "Oh my God, we're being reported to the board," and the attorney said something. So things like that you have to take into account, which is what you try to do. And you're a behavior analyst, and so you should have some sense of being able to size these things up, and especially as you get more experience. Some of you that are fresh out, this will all be really new to you, but if you've been out 4 or 5 years, as I list these things, you're going to say, oh yeah, I remember that, how that all came out. Step 4, once you've got the players, is to think in terms of the contingency plans. And the contingency plans just means, okay, well, here's what we're going to do. Now, if that doesn't work, then we're going to have a plan B. If that doesn't work, we're going to have a plan C. And the idea is when you're thinking through a complex ethics situation, you almost always want to have a contingency plan to fall back on if plan A doesn't work. So in this case, the BCABA, her plan A was to just talk to the owner and point this out and try to get the owner to realize, this is not a good idea and get it fixed. She was pushed away from that idea and told, Don't worry about it. It's temporary. It's not a big deal. Don't worry about it. She didn't have a plan B. It's like, well, what if I do that and then nothing happens? And I spent some time talking to her about this after it was over, and she quit this organization. And I said to her, well, did you have a plan B? What were you going to do after that? And she said, well, not really. I said, well, let's talk about what that would look like. Let's go back and kind of rehearse it here again. Plan A is you go to the owner and you point this out, and she says, no, now what's your next option? Well, for many people, plan B is to just drop it. It's like, I don't want to get into this. It's going to be too much trouble. I don't want to be sued. I don't want to be fired. To hell with it. Now, the code doesn't say anything about that. The code doesn't give you an out to say to hell with it, or to say I want to drop it. The code is cold-hearted in this regard, and it says if there is some possibility of harm to the clients, or if you know a violation of the code, here's the steps that you go through. So here's what I think Plan B would have been had she thought about this. Well, she could have just gone straight to the parents and say, remember we had that discussion and we talked about this, and I got to tell you, I misspoke. I told you that it was only going to be temporary, but on further reflection, after I get a little more information, I don't believe that it's a temporary situation, and I believe this to be deliberate. I believe this is deliberate on a part of the owner of this company. And as you can tell, just from what I said, that's likely to be somewhat inciting on the part of the parents. They're not going to go, oh, well, fine. I think they're going to feel like they need to do something. Now, there could be other Plan Bs. So these are just sort of examples. But she could have, for example, Plan B could have been report the owner, who was a BCBA, report her to the board. She could have done that. That could have been Plan B. But this is one. And I think it's a good idea to have a Plan C. Most people who are in any kind of endeavor have at least a Plan B. But they don't necessarily go to C. The people who go to C, D, those are chess players who know how to play several steps in advance, and they're ready for any alternative. And people have to do this all the time. Like if you travel, especially if you travel anywhere around in the winter, your Plan A is to get on the plane at the Atlanta airport and fly to LaGuardia. That's your Plan A. My advice, carry some dry underwear in your purse. There's a good chance you're going to spend the night on the plane or in an airport somewhere, and your luggage is not going to be anywhere around. So that would be my advice. Have some extra cash stashed away somewhere, and just be prepared, because in the winter you never know what's going to happen. Right, Dennis? Never know what's going to happen. So anyway, those are sort of, people think about that. You do this like you're driving down the road, you look at your gas tank, it's almost on empty, and your Plan A is, well, I'm going to get gas at the next gas station. All right, that's good. What's your Plan B? What if there is no gas station? You run out of gas. You got a Plan B? Most people haven't thought about that, in which case, really the best Plan A is to make a U-turn and go back to that last gas station. That would be a better Plan A. Okay, Plan C. Now we're ramping this up. And if she went to the parents and if they decided to take some action, then you wouldn't need to go to Plan C, assuming that something happened, that they got some action. I'm involved in another case. This one's down in the Miami area, where the families, it was very similar in terms of this billing business, and 2 or 3 families went together and met with the owner and said, you're billing on days that the school's not even open. And some of these days you're double billing, and we don't think that's right. And we need to have this fixed. Something needs to be done here. And they were summarily dismissed and told, take your child out of here. You're not welcome here. So that was what happened with them. And I could see that if you convince the parents to do something, they go in with their part of the plan, and they get blown off, basically. I could see, well, maybe you and they together would be going off to the insurance commissioner where they set the rules and regulations about all such things as this. Okay. Step 5 involves what I call skills and clout. And this is where, if you go back to the very first thing at the beginning of the session, right after lunch, where I presented this double helix of here's the ethics and here's the professional skills. This is where that comes into play in step 5. So how do you go about persuading the owner? What is your modus operandi for being persuasive with the owner? The person who gave me this scenario said, well, I just went in there and I told her. And in retrospect, she probably should have thought through her persuasion plan. As it was, she just kind of blurted it out. People do that when they're nervous. And people get nervous about various things. And so I think, understanding your persuasion. In the 25 skills, we have a whole section on persuasion. This would involve making sure that you had really good personal communications, making sure that you had kind of read up on persuasion. What's the best way to persuade somebody that the mistake they've made needs to be corrected? Well, probably not by accusing them of something. Make it sound like it's correctable, and that maybe no harm would be done if it was corrected quickly. So the list on the right is a list, kind of increasing intrusiveness of the types of skills that you might need to solve a problem, starting with personal communications and persuasion, problem solving, critical thinking, negotiation, think function shaping, and so on, all the way up through leverage and power and the law. Let's say, just hypothetical, because you never know how these situations are going to be. Let's say that this BCBA, young person who has taken some graduate courses, let's just say that her mom is an attorney. And she gets on the phone to her mom and explains this whole thing. And she said, well, you need to go in there and talk to her. And the BCBA says, oh, this woman is very intimidating. I don't know about that. And she said, all right, hang up. I'm getting a plane. I'll be up there tomorrow. We'll go in and see her together. Now, that would be a way to kind of bring in some clout to the situation. So now, this BCBA, this young person, a first-year grad student, basically, goes in to see the owner, and she has an attorney with her. Now, my guess is that you get a little different reaction out of the owner under those circumstances because she's brought some clout to the situation. And there could be a whole variety of other ways to do that. I've seen that handled in all kinds of ways. You got to know how to handle difficult people. You got to know how to apply some leverage. In this case, she really didn't have any leverage. And handling difficult people, that would have been useful if she'd have thought about what she knew about this owner. Plan B, consider informing the parents. Plan B, it's got to be some problem solving there, like how am I going to bring this up with them? What are the circumstances? I don't think it would be, for example, a good idea to discuss this with them right when they pick their kid up at school and on the school grounds. I don't think that would be good. So you've got to kind of problem solve that a little bit. So she can be there when they come to pick them up, and she could say, I have to discuss something with you. Could we get together for coffee later this afternoon? Or when would be a good time? Something I have to discuss with you. So you get away from the school grounds, solve that problem. You're still going to have good personal communication skills, and my experience is that as you become more seasoned as a behavior analyst, that those improve sort of naturally. The natural environment shapes on those things. So you know how to bring a topic up and how to be kind of subtle with it and all that kind of stuff. Negotiation and lobbying, if you could get the parents to agree to do this, you could have them understand how they could kind of lobby the owner to get a good decision out of this so that they don't get kicked out and she doesn't get reported to the insurance commission. Plan C, this is going to take a lot. You kind of need to know what the law is. You probably need to call down there, ask them, how does this work? If I know of a case of insurance fraud, what do I need to do? And the secretary will refer you to somebody and you get them on the phone, or they'll say, come down and talk to us. And in the meantime, you might want to read up on it to find out exactly what's involved. But you're gonna need to know that. And I think in terms of the 25 skills, if we do another edition of that book, I think I'm going to add one, make it 26 at least, where we talk about your involvement with the legal process, your involvement with the legislative process, because that's increasingly getting to be an issue for every behavior analyst. The days are gone when you can simply go to work with kids, help them out, change their lives, and go home. This doesn't work like that, because after work you're going to be in a meeting with some other people and you're trying to pass a licensing law and you're meeting with legislators and lobbyists, and that has become part of the job, it seems. After you look into this, your plan C might be just to quit, but that's really not right, because now the owner gets off scot-free. And I don't think that's a viable option. Now, so I can tell you, short version of what did happen is that she skipped over, she didn't do plan A quite right, I don't think. She skipped over plan B, went straight to plan C. She just quit. Said, I don't want to work someplace where there's unethical stuff going on. I don't want to be tainted with that. I don't want to deal with it. But she didn't feel like she had the skills and the clout to make anything happen. Now, I've added step 6 to this, which is, you would think, not really necessary, but just to be sort of OCD on this, you can't just have an idea. You've got to have some sense of implementation. How does this thing get implemented in this setting? So you've got to have some kind of a plan of exactly what you're going to do. So you don't just, on a whim, just say, okay, I've had it. I'm going in there and I'm going to talk to her. But okay, what's the right time? Monday morning is not a good time. I know that. She's too busy. A lot of stuff happens on Monday morning. Friday afternoon, that's not a good time either. People are packing up, they're ready to go. So it's got to be one of those other days. Wednesday's not good for some reason. What about Thursday? So you start looking at her schedule and your schedule and you realize, Thursday's pretty good. It's sort of a light day. We don't have too many crises by then. They've all been worked out. So I'm thinking Thursday, and I'm sort of thinking in the morning, because sometimes she takes off and goes to a long lunch and maybe not even come back. So it's that kind of strategic thinking that gets you into this mode of step 6. Sort of like, if you can remember back, this wasn't that long ago, sort of like when you ask your parents for the keys to the car. You want to pick a day and a time when they're in a really good mood. Like the same day that report cards come out and you got straight A's. And so you present the straight A report card and your parents are all smiles and give me a hug and, oh, you're so good. What can we do for you? I was thinking maybe this would be nice if you could just let me have the keys to the Corvette. Do you think you could do that? No. No. How about the Volvo? Well, see, you were thinking Volvo all along. But if you went and asked for that, then you're going to be on foot. So you ask for the Corvette, you get turned down, you get what you wanted. So it's that sort of, idea where you're sort of thinking this through, anticipating it, and applying what you know about behavior. If you're going to do Plan B, when is that going to be? My guess is that it has to be pretty quick after you get turned down, if you're going to get turned down. If you wait too long, the owner's going to be sniffing around and realize you're up to something, and then you're going to be fired before you can do anything. Plan C, insurance company, that can happen whenever you feel comfortable. I tried, even at the point that she brought this case to me, I tried to get her to do that one, to report them to the insurance commission, but she didn't feel like she wanted to do that. Step 7 is an evaluation. Because it's the case that you're going to have lots of ethics situations come up. Not all of them complex, but you're going to have a lot come up. My estimate is about once a week. Something will come up. Some little thing, some medium thing. A lot of little things come up once a week. Most commonly are things like conflict of interest, confidentiality, stuff like that. Little things that you can handle, gifting, all that kind of stuff. But it's a good idea when you get into these medium to complex ones to keep track of what you did, because this is, to a certain extent, this is your diary of your effectiveness in learning how to handle ethics cases. And if you keep this list, keep this diary of what you did and how the outcome was, if you have another one that comes up in 6 months, you can go back and look at the first one and say, how did I handle that? What did I do wrong the first time? Maybe I can learn from that situation. Plan A was a failure. Parents weren't interested. I have here that they went to the answer and demanded, went to the owner and demanded answers, but that's not what happened. And Plan C wouldn't be necessary if the parents got satisfaction. However, they didn't. So she quit, they quit. It was a mess. Ignore that page 11 thing. So this is a flow chart of what that looks like. Starting with, is the issue covered by the guidelines? It should say the code. If it's no, well, then you're going to drop it. If it is, yes, what's the code number or numbers? Is there serious risk involved? If the answer is no, what are the alternatives? What are some other ways to solve this problem? If it's yes, who are the players? What kind of positions do they have? What kind of power? What agencies do they control that you're going to have to deal with? What about contingency plans that are going to flow out of this? What kind of skills are you going to have? And again, the purpose of this skills and clout list is for you to think about, when these things come up in the future, I need to be prepared. I need to get myself ready for these things. Just like, if you're going to go hiking on K2, you want to spend a lot of time hiking around the mountains, and there's lots of mountains up here in North Georgia, and you want to get yourself ready. You want to get fit, lose a few pounds, learn to walk at altitude, lots of things you do, and the same thing goes in working with ethics cases. There's that list. You go through your implementation. Don't forget to do an evaluation where you do an honest evaluation of what happened here. So in your case, they said, please leave. You did. You didn't make a stink about it. And because you left the way you did, then you were okay to come back. There would have been circumstances under which you could have held your ground and say, I'm not leaving now. The kid's having a tantrum. That means if I leave, he went. You could have done that, but you didn't. So that was very good. You bowed out. We'll fight this battle another day. So that was very good on your part. So if you were keeping a diary of this, I'd put a little note in there. Presented this to Dr. Bailey on November 6th. He said I did the right thing. Okay. There's a note on step 7, which is, I already said this, urge you to keep a some kind of an ethics notebook, a log or something. Make sure it's not on a company computer, and keep this in some kind of a safe place where you can have access to it. Write your notes and thoughts in there about ethics, but it's private for you. And keep notes on these ethics things so that at the end of the year you can look back and see, how many did you have? I had this one early in the year, and I really blew it. And now we're getting down towards, now it's March, it's in April. Now I'm making another entry. I got to go back. How did I do that anyway? I messed that one up. We're not going to take a break. We're going to push on through here. So that's the 7 steps. Before I go to specific cases, anybody, some more cases, anybody have other questions about any of that?
So you kind of made it seem as if BCBAs don't have a lot of leeway with respect to how to address ethical issues. You mentioned that the ethics code is cold-hearted with respect to following through.
Pretty much.
Was this BCBA who, it turns out, kind of just made a snide remark to the BCBA and then quit? Is that an ethical way to handle that?
No, it's not. It's not.
What are the expectations in terms of following it out? I mean, are you kind of required to go all the way to the insurance company or whatever?
My read of it is that you're not required to go all the way, but you're required to demonstrate that you're part of a profession that believes that there's right things to do and a right way to do them, and that you've made an attempt in that regard. People are not all equally bold and fearless. Some people, especially young people, my experience is they're somewhat timid when it comes to these things. And when you say, you need to march yourself right down there to the insurance commissioner and you need to make a stink out of this whole thing, they would go, oh, not me, no. And I understand that, and I think to a certain extent, the code realizes that everybody's not going to be bold. But I believe, and when I say the code, what I'm thinking of is I'm thinking of this conference room up in Chicago 2 years ago where we met for 3 days, and all of these people contributing to the code, and how they spoke strongly about the need to have some rules and to get people in our field to understand this is what we want. That was a very strong impression I came out of that. There wasn't any conversation in that 3-day meeting that said, well, yeah, this is sort of a rule, but we're not going to enforce this one. I mean, on the contrary, it was, we need to make it perfectly clear. So, could that BCABA have been reported for not dealing with this issue? Possibly. Then you'd have to get into who's going to ding her, who's going to report her. I don't know who that would be. Might be the parents if they felt like she didn't stand up for what was right. But she was going up against her boss. She was a BCABA, her boss was a BCBA, the boss was the owner of the company, as well as the manager of that particular facility, and they had 3 or 4 around the state, and she chose that one as her home base. Fairly powerful person. She did the right thing. She went and said, I don't think this is right. I think this is double billing, and at least she did that part. If she had quit and not done that part, I'd feel really bad about that. This incident that happened out in California, the stabbing. Merced, yeah. There was a worker, a contractor, kind of like a repair person, who was close by. He heard the noise. He ran toward it and did what he could to wrestle the guy to the ground and got stabbed in the process. Very few people have that kind of power in themselves to do that. Everybody else pretty much ran. I think what the code is looking for is people who are going to sort of take charge. And I think the idea is that if a lot of people take charge, we can clean up a lot of this mess that's going on in the field. And this stuff about overbilling, inappropriate billing, insurance fraud, all that kind of stuff. Maybe it's just me getting all these cases, but it looks like it is almost like a disease in our field. And if we don't all take some part of that and stand up to it, we're going to be in trouble. The insurance companies, right now, we're at the mercy of the insurance companies. And if they decide that we're not worthy, and they get themselves together and they get themselves a voting block and they start undoing what's been done in terms of all this stuff, we're going to be back where we were. So most of you are not old enough to know what it was like before when it was all private pay. Very few clients, very little behavior analysis, no visibility in the culture. And it could go back to that if we don't clean up our act. So it's a very long answer. I apologize for that. But
Anybody else while I have it up?
I think there is a question in there. I don't think I had time to paste it in, but it had to do with a conflict between what the parents wanted and what the behavior analyst thought was appropriate. Do you have that one at all? Well, let me just describe it generally. Maybe we'll find the specific question. The situation that you're in as a behavior analyst, the parents want one thing, and in representing the client's best interest and what the client needs to be successful, you determine that something else is appropriate. So who wins if the parents want something and you're sizing it up is, that's not going to do any good. That's not going to help this kid. There's one school of thought that says, well, really the parents are your clients, not the kid. The parents are the client, so whatever they want, they get. See, and I think we have to, I see Michael shaking his head back there. Me too. I don't think so. Now, if you get head-to-head with the parents, like you had a close call, sort of, with the parents, you go head-to-head with them and they say, this is what we want. And you say, listen, I'm sorry, I can't do that. You can't just say no. You sort of have to talk about what we do. And you've got science and ethics on your part. You've got what you know in terms of your assessment of the child and what's his best interest. You've got your declaration of practice where you laid out for parents how you operate and how you do use empirical treatment. This is you. You plucked your eyebrows and got your makeup right. This is the parent that's screaming at you. They want something different. And there's your foundation in JABA. So you have to think in terms of how do I, is that it? How do I make my case? Thank you very much. Not exactly. There should be another one in there. This one's close. So let me, while you're looking for that other one, let me read this one to you. While we provide center-based treatment, we also provide home and in-community services to the families we serve. My question is related to working with the families. We often have difficulties getting the parents and other caregivers to be invested and involved in their child's progress, treatment, recovery, similar to building a program for our clients that maximizes opportunities for reinforcement and feedback. We often develop programs for reinforcing parent involvement and participation. That's excellent. But of course, we're not always successful. That's too bad. Sometimes even encountering families who refuse to participate or implement our strategies. That is really sad. But Let me just stop right there and say, there should be some possible weeding out of that factor with that declaration, because that's a meeting where you sit down and you say, okay, this is the way I work, this is what we're going to do, we've done an assessment, this is what the plan is, what do you think? And you're looking for some head nods, and then you're going to go, so you're with us 100%, we're going to support this? And if you go, if their response back is, oh yeah, sure, 100%, and you go, it didn't sound like 100%. They just said that to be nice. So then maybe you probe a little bit more and ask a few more questions about, so this is going to take some time on your part. I'll have to train you. It's going to have to be like an hour a day, an hour a week, whatever it is. That's it, yes. So we'll do that one next. Use all your behavioral skills to get some sense of, well, why aren't they so enthusiastic about this? And if they're not, because you really, I think, tell me if I'm wrong, you want to work with people that are excited about implementing this plan. You're certainly excited. Why aren't they excited? And if you can't get them up to the level that you feel really confident in this, it's going to be a problem. So here's the question after the background. Do you have any specific recommendations/strategies for addressing the ethical dilemma presented when caregivers will not incorporate our strategies and refuse to extend treatment outside of therapy sessions? So does that ring a bell with anybody? I assume that this comes from Saudi Arabia or someplace. I would say that I would hope that there would be better screening on the front end where you would describe to people, to the parents, okay, well, we're going to do da-da-da-da-da, and this is what we're going to do. Now, the next step is for him to be able to go with you out to a restaurant. My recommendation is like a fast food, someplace that's informal like that. Are you willing to do that? Oh, no, I can't take that kid out. He's a mess. Blah, blah, blah. We hire a babysitter if we want to go out to eat. Then you find yourself in this situation where you're trying to encourage them to do the right thing and applying whatever reinforcers you can. I'll go with you. How about if I go with you? And I'll take charge, and you can you'll be with there, but you can kind of watch how I would handle this. What about that? If you start getting pushback on that, then I say, you might need to cut your losses on this. You might say, I've gone as far as I can go with this client. They don't want any further treatment. So that's one of the clauses in the code that says, when do you terminate treatment? It's when the client can't improve or when you don't have full cooperation and so on. It's time to terminate. Okay, this is the one I was thinking of. Thank you for finding this one. So this is a similar one, and it's related to this issue. The client is not mastering goals. Client has many physical, medical challenges that interfere in learning. Parents don't agree to teaching prerequisite skills because they are too low for him. So this is a pretty good case of you with what you know about his assessment, the science of the kid, what you learned from there, plus the ethics of doing the right thing. We're here to make sure that we advance the independent behaviors on the part of this particular child. I think this is probably a good case for persuasion. This is time to begin persuading parents of the necessity of it. And there's several things you could do, like the one of watch me do it, let me show you a videotape of how it's done. I mean, there would be lots of things, but you're back into persuasion mode. And somewhere in there, you've got to figure out where, this is a question, this particular one is about prerequisite skills that they think is too low for him. So you might even compromise a little bit on that and do some negotiating. So how high up do they want the skills? And can you negotiate something just a little lower and maybe make that work? So that would be I think, what I would recommend for that one. Here's a question that has to do with what's called scope of consultation. Client sibling who is contracted recipient of services engages in problem behavior. During a session, it was observed by the behavior analyst. If the matter is not clinically significant, the individual is not hold a diagnosis, would this be grounds to provide consultation? You're in the home, you're the expert, you've demonstrated that you have expertise. The parents ask you a question, they value your expertise. What do you say?
Similar to, like if you're out in the community and someone says,
Yes.
I have a problem child, help me, or, what would you do? Is it similar to that then?
Yeah. You can't take them on as a client. You can't say, oh, you're my client, I'll just give you this 2-for-1. This is a freebie. We're running a special today on clients. Yeah. Hope it doesn't come to that. And say, here's a pretty good book. Here's some videos that I could recommend that might help you, whatever it is. So you don't look like a bad guy. There's a question in there, Janet, that I don't think I pasted in here. That has to do with school, people working in the schools.
Is it the school, the client question?
I think, yeah. And there might have been more than one of those.
There's one for sure. And we'll go through the other ones.
This is it, yes. Anybody here work in the schools? Okay, let's see if this sounds familiar. I run into situations frequently where schools, their attorneys, and others assume that if the school you're consulting in writes the check for your services, then the school is the client. They always point to Ethical Guideline 2.01, and then down here is the definition of the client. Anybody heard anything like this? We pay, you get your check from us, we're the client. I tell them that the school would be my client if I was training a group of teachers on the general characteristics of autism using ABA to increase language skills in kids with developmental disabilities, setting up an incentive program for office staff, etc. But when the particular student is the ultimate benefit of the consultation, such as in behavior analysis, treatment, writing a behavior intervention plan, and so on, that the student is the client regardless of where the services take place and regardless of who writes the check. I agree with this 100%. So whoever wrote that, great. Now the next part of this says, I've spoken to several BCBAs, consulting for schools who have this opinion, and the BCBAs also agree that the school, not the client, not the child, is the client. I don't know how you justify that. That's very much old thinking and certainly not behavior analysis thinking, because in our world, the most vulnerable person is the client, and it's always going to be the handicapped adult or the student, the child, whatever. They're going to be your client, and what that means is this is a tough spot for some people. This means is you have to tell the people that write your check, I'm sorry, I can't do that. Now, what should have happened in the beginning is that declaration that we looked at earlier here, where the school got a copy of the declaration and you said to them, thank you for the check very much, blah, 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 but my client is the child and the child's family, the student's family. I'll just tell you my opinion of the schools. Is there a way to cut off the tape, or can we edit this? Can we edit this somehow? But here's I'll give you the Jeb Bush version. Schools are wonderful places. Everybody gets along, but they were at what they were doing a long time before we came around, and they have their own bureaucracy and their own rules and their ways of doing things, and they have their hierarchies. And long time ago, they decided that the best bet was to tell the teachers that your classroom, you're in charge of your classroom, and don't have to listen to anybody if you don't want to. And they have been used to, for years, hiring consultants to come in to do their bidding. And so they have that as their history of reinforcement, is we hire you to do what we want you to do. Case just recently was I was hired by the school to do an assessment on a child. The parents found out about this. There's a red flag right there that they found out about this, because they should have given approval in the front end, but they didn't. They weren't asked for approval, so they didn't give it, but they heard about it. Somehow they found out, maybe the teacher or something. That person contacted me and said, I'd like a copy of the report. The consultant who was hired to do this assessment of this child worked for a company. So the company was contacted, she was contracted to do this. She writes to me and she says, my company policy is that we send the report to the parents within 24 hours. Whenever it's done, we try to get it to them immediately, basically. I was told by the school, you hold on to that. We've got an IEP coming up. You can give it to them right before then. So she's telling me this, that doesn't sound right. And I wrote back immediately and said, I'm with you on this. The parents have a right to this information. And the reason the school is doing that is they want to get an edge on the IEP, and they want to be able to go in there and control things, and they want the parents to go, we haven't had a chance to look at this yet. Well, it'll be fine. So I encouraged the student, the behavior analyst who wrote me, to tell the school, no, I'm not going to do it that way. And she wrote back and said, they probably won't give me any more work. And I said, probably right. But that's okay, because you don't want to work under those circumstances. You don't want to work under circumstances where people who don't have the same values as we do are working against them. Another case up in Maine, where a dad wrote me and told me about he found his initially 10-year-old daughter, autistic, went to school. She was sort of doing okay, but then, and he would pick her up after school, and she would come to the car and she'd be crying, and she'd crawl in the back seat and just lay on the back seat and cry all the way home. He thought that was highly unusual. He didn't know what that was about. He would ask her, and she didn't have anything to say about that. Well, one day, they got home, he was going through her backpack, because there'd be school notes and stuff in there, and he found crumpled up a data sheet that accidentally got put in her backpack, and it had across the top something like behavior management plan. And he said, what the hell is this? And contacted the school and said, I don't know anything about this. You didn't get permission from me. What's going on here? And was basically told, we don't have to get permission from you. You signed your blanket release at the beginning of the year, and that if you go look at that, it says that we can do any kind of assessment at any time, whenever we need it, and we reserve the right to keep the data, whatever it was. Well, he went through the ceiling and said, that's just not right. He wrote me, wanted to know, and I said, you're absolutely right. Our code of ethics says that you operate in the best interest of the client, and that includes the family, and that means that you ask their permission and you tell them what's going on, and they sit in the meeting. You don't manipulate this behind the scenes. So he took that information, went back to them, and they resisted, and so he took them to court. and he won. And then they appealed. Then they went up another level, and he won again. And they appealed again, and they appealed all the way to the Maine Supreme Court with this thing. And when they got to the Maine Supreme Court on the day before they were going to issue a decision, the school came in with a settlement. Said, okay, we don't want this decision. We kind of get whatever it is. So I said, so? And he says, well, I had to sign a confidentiality clause on the decision. I said, darn, I really wanted to know. He said, well, let me put it this way. I'm just an average guy. I don't make a lot of money. But my daughter is now in a private school. She's getting the best treatment that could possibly be, and there's no way I could afford that. So I got the impression that the school's paying for that. So it's a long way around the issue of who is the client. And the school is not, my position is the school is not the client. My interpretation of the code is the school is not the client. The child is the client. Whoever's in the best interest of the child, the parents, those are the clients. So back to this, can you clear up this, perhaps suggest some language changes to 2.01 that this issue might be more obvious? It is both vague and ambiguous to the point of consistent confusion. I think it could probably be changed. It's not going to be changed at this point because it's all brand new and it's just going into effect. But we sort of have in our field and through the certification board, we sort of have what's equivalent to case law. It's not called that, but if somebody operates in the best interest of the school instead of the client, and somebody else knows about that firsthand, and they ding that person, my guess is that it's going to come down against them, that they shouldn't have made that decision. And that becomes a precedent. And I think they've already had a couple of those precedents. So I think, but it's not known, it's not published, it's not out there anywhere. And I think the only way to find out is to submit a notice, which is what they call these complaints. Here's one that came in. I did get this one pasted in. Consultant working in public schools. I think we have time for one more here. We frequently encounter BCBAs who are employed by the school. When we obtain informed consent for FBAs, we use our own form that explains the pros and cons, risks and benefit alternatives, if any, etc. I consider that part one, and I'd say they got that right. That is correct. When we see the consent form used by the school-employed BCBAs, there are always a generic, non-specific consent to assess. This is actually what I was just talking about, this last case, on which contains several boxes to be checked. One is for an FBA. Others might be for AT, SLP, etc. 3 questions. First, is this sort of blanket consent form considered informed consent? The answer is no, it's not. And is it ethical for BCBAs, regardless of whether the form might be legal, to obtain consent on the part of the public school system? Some things are legal, but they're unethical. And I would say, well, it might be legal, but that doesn't make it right, which is to say it's unethical. Second, if the parent does not consent to the FBA, the school may have the right to go forward with the evaluation in some situations. I would say that's not correct. And if the person was a BCBA who did that, they could be reported for that incident. But it is ethical for the school-employed BCBA to take part in an FBA with approval. Are the BCBAs bound by the parent's non-consent or by the school's right to assess? I would say BCBAs are bound by parents' informed consent. That's what they're bound by. And it seems to me that that's in the best interest of the child, the best interest of the family. And for that part of the question, and there's a third one I think coming, for that part of the question, you sort of have to ask yourself, what would be the reputation of the field if we did it the other way around? What would our field look like to potential consumers if we joined this little parade that the schools want to have, where they just get to do things their way and the parents don't get much involved? I don't think people would want to buy our services. It looks like we're basically, a hitman for a well-funded organization, and we're not. We're not gunslingers. We're in this to do the right thing by the kids, and so I'd say only if it's a true informed consent. And by the way, informed consent for assessment is not hard because there's very little harm. Informed consent, that term really goes with research, and it's sort of been hijacked or borrowed in clinical practice. Informed consent to research means that we've told you, here's all the possible things that could happen and what the likelihood is of them happening. And some of them, they may be somewhat dangerous, like the thing I was describing earlier, Miltenberger's work with gun safety. I'm sure that there was a fairly elaborate informed consent where they had to spell out, what could happen if this child is exposed to firearms. But when it comes to assessment, very little risk, and you're not likely to do an FBA where the kid is going to be put in a room by himself just to observe him. You're probably not going to run in a lone condition. That wouldn't be a safe thing to do in a school. You could do it at Johns Hopkins where you have doctors and nurses on call and watching and so on, but you're not going to run that. You're only going to run things that are easy to do, cause no harm, give you some information. So I don't think informed consent doesn't exactly pertain in that case because there's not much to report. Should the school employed BCBA, that is the BCBA working for the school, use their own consent form that is explained and signed directly by the parents, even if the school uses a generic form referenced above? So whoever wrote this, I hope you're listening. Number 3, exactly right. If they're saying, well, at the minimum, we've got this, is that good enough? I would say the behavioral position is no, it's not good enough. Good enough is full disclosure, full transparency. We'd like your support. Here's what we're going to do. What do you think? To me, that's the right thing to do. Okay, we'll finish on this one. This is a question that came in. Behavior technicians crossing what I consider to be ethical boundaries with families, accepting food, attending birthday parties, speaking to parents outside of therapy sessions, etc. What do you think? You okay with this? No. How about you?
Yes.
What?
Well, oh, this. No, I
Yeah.
thought you meant answering it. Yes.
Yeah.
So no.
Yeah, no. How about you? No. How about you? No. Any yeses? Anybody who thinks that it's okay for behavior techs or anybody, any behavior analyst, accepting food, attending birthday parties, speaking to parents outside of therapy? That last one's worded a little funny because you might talk to them about, well, he did really good today, that sort of thing. I think they're saying, yeah, chit chat, yeah, right. So nobody has a yes. Kobe, I'm about to tell you something that's very important here, which is everybody got the last question right, so congratulations, they're all graduated. From Data Fence U, or whatever. Thank you very much.